That's better. All right. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Wonderful. Yeah, surviving.
Yeah, to start, so this movie, I am very, very obsessed with it. I've told everyone so far today how obsessed I am with Poor Things. And the music is a big part of it because it is its own Frankenstein story, but it is also very bright and vibrant. So it is very cool to kind of dive into it because you're telling this odd, fascinating story with a character who is so cool to kind of go on this journey with. Like, I'm obsessed with Bella Baxter. When you are diving into that from a musical aspect, how did you guys kind of work to kind of underscore her story in particular and make it unique to Bella Baxter?
It's a really good question. Yeah, mo most of the score I started with just the script very early on, and I was really taken aback by this character and everything about her, and especially the way she develops and the way you kind of see different parts of your own development. Like you recognize some parts of her being like a child, and then there are these weird in between artifacts that are peculiar to her being, basically a child in an adult's body that are unfamiliar. So there's all this incredible spectrum of emotional and social development. Musically, I think a great deal of the the writing had to be true and honest to her position in this world and how she felt and how she was able to act. And early on, we decided, or I decided, I didn't want a score that was invincible, kind of like, something that was kind of like lavish and was just like this, something really gorgeous or impenetrable just to school the world. It needed to grow up with her. So at the very beginning, it was important that the score was very vulnerable and embarrassing almost that it would kind of like teeter around a bit. And when she's basically a toddler, it had that sense of childishness. And then, as she starts to explore and gain new experiences and gain maturity, then the score kind of opens up and there are these new colors and these new sounds and instruments, and it kind of grows and grows with her. And also, it was important to give voice to her emotions, give a louder voice to those emotions. So I think, especially at points where she's kind of horrified or something like traumatic happens, I had to really scream with her. I had to really be completely affected, and in a way which is totally inelegant, because that's how people experience, that's how she experienced these things. It's not like a gorgeously soundtrack thing. It's, especially the scene in the middle in Alexandria, where she sees death and famine for the first time, and the score is meant to be this just like huge, overly loud outburst. Like when you hear a baby screaming, it doesn't know how loud it's screaming. It just really has to get this emotion out. So yeah, her emotions and her development were very, very core to the score.
And I do think one of my personal favorite aspects of this film is how, because she is both a woman and a child simultaneously, she does age rapidly. And so it's like everything that we're watching is happening in such quick succession. And it is something that, like, you don't know at any point what is going on within her. And she doesn't even understand this within herself. Did you get to, within the score, get to play with that aspect? Because it is so fast and everything is kind of happening at such these rapid paces. Is that something that you yourself got to get to mess with slightly?
Yeah, no, that definitely affected the structure of the score. I mean, yeah, everything moves so quickly and the story moves quickly, and she, as you say, evolves really quickly. So there are certain themes which kind of come back at certain stages, but a lot of them kind of get left behind and everything actually evolves really quickly. And I think the score moves in terms of, yeah, its development at a similar pace to Bella. And one of the only places where it kind of stays pretty consistent is there's a theme, which is the first theme you hear in the film, which is more to do with her previous life, with Victoria's life. And that kind of keeps bubbling up and it keeps getting obfuscated a bit. And then finally, when you see like the actual, the really shocking twist, and you go to her old house and see her old room, and you realize the kind of horror and trauma that was about to be performed on her, then that theme really comes to the front. But it's always kind of been bubbling away in the background of all this kind of quickly developing stuff.
But I do want to ask, 'cause it's fascinating to me to hear that you were working off of the script, because most of the time when we hear about scores, it's the reverse. It's people working off of like the film itself and working with like seeing the scenes and seeing like everything post it already kind of being done. Is it more interesting to you as a musician to get to work with something that you are seeing on the paper versus seeing something that has already happened?
Yeah, I think it was quite liberating. It gave me a lot of freedom. I think often if you're watching something, your half of your brain is thinking how to do the timing or what might fit the scene. But I was actually able, just from the script, and also I had the production details, so I kind of designs, so I knew, how intensely bright and surreal the world looked. Um, and what I did was just write a lot of music based on what I thought, you know Bella would be thinking or experiencing at different parts of the film. And what does it sound like when she falls in love? What does it sound like when she's kind of having fun, or when something kind of goes a bit off and there's this kind of gut drop? And it just allowed me, as well, in the research, I wasn't thinking about the visuals. I could think about the medical side of it, or I could think about the costumes and the textures and sounds. So yeah, no, I really like doing it this way around. I think it resulted in better music because I was thinking a lot more abstractly and a lot more emotionally.
Yeah, and it's such a pretty score too, which I think scores can make or break movies, because sometimes they're so overpowering that you're like, I don't know what's going on. Like I'm only paying attention to whatever this is. And this one is so pretty, and in a movie that is so distinctly each kind of place that they are going. Was there a specific location that when you are scoring it, just kind of that location really worked for you, that you when you did score it, you were like, this is the score that I really was the most proud of? I know that feels weird because I also play music and I don't like to be like, oh, I like only this song that I play. But like, was there one that you were like, no, this is the one that I was the most proud of?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I'm really glad you used the word pretty because I think, it could be interpreted as a bit dissonant and a bit jarring. But
Mhm.
I think there were definitely points, especially at the beginning when there's so much innocence and so much love in a lot of ways. Uh, I really wanted something to be simultaneously really beautiful and really pretty, but also not like glossy and polished and like, invincible in that sort of way. It still needed to kind of be like, like a kid playing a really beautiful melody on a violin, and there's kind of a bit
Mhm.
of scraping, but it has that. In that category of music, there's a piece of music where it basically underscores Max and Bella starting to fall in love with each other, and it's just like a single bell and like a very little voice. And I feel very attached to that piece of music. I think it's really cute, and I think it feels so pure and honest, and like, yeah, I don't know, that's definitely my favorite of the pretty bits, I suppose. And I think it works. I don't know, yeah, I love it. I feel very attached to that, just like that little bit.
When I also, everyone I've talked to has said like Yorgos' style has been like, I don't want to use chaotic, but he's been like, I decided this is black and white. And then they've kind of like gone off of what he wants to do, just so it's more of like a don't think about it, just do and create, which I think is very fascinating, because I think people like to pre-plan a bit too much, and that can kind of still the creativity process. With you and the music portion, did he give you any kind of guidance on what he wanted, or was it more of just kind of like, here's the script, create how you would? Was it more of like a here, go do what you want, or was he there to kind of like shape how he wanted it to sound?
Yeah, the second one definitely. I think that well, the second and the first one. Um, he was very hands off in what the music should sound like. He gave me a very long leash to play around on. We never discussed any references, never discussed any other composers or any other films. I mean, like, for all intents and purposes, it was like this might as well be the only film that exists. So what could possibly be the music for it? But no, he's never, yeah, he never gets very involved in saying he needs this or he needs this. And I think actually having the freedom to decide for yourself what it should sound like, what it should feel like, what the colors should be, uh, it gives you, I think it results in such better music. You're not constrained by anything. And I really like to imagine, and I really love the stages where I'm kind of researching and thinking about these, yeah, what potentially could come out of such a already incredibly, beautiful existing series of artworks and words. So yeah, no, it's a great form of directing. I really enjoy it.
And it's with this movie as a whole, people keep trying to put labels on it, which I do think is funny because there's not really a label. I remember like people at New York Film Festival were trying to call it steampunk, and everyone was like, it's not. Someone else was trying to call it something else. They're like, it's not. But I do think it's fun to try and label this movie because people can't figure it out. But for you and this music, it is very it's interesting and cool, and I like it a lot. But if you had, you already talked about the song that you think is pretty, you do have an attachment to. But for my last quick question, if you had to just pick the one song that you were like, hey, if no one else wants to listen to the my entire score that I've created for poor things, just please try and like understand that this is the one song that I want anyone to hear, what would it be?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the music in Alexandria, where she sees the slum and sees the horror for the first time, I think that's really important. It really, like, that's really the apotheosis of her development, and up until that point, everything is reasonably innocent and sweet, and it's, it
Yeah.
could be a nice story up until that point. But I think that's the bit where you really see like the depth and the intensity of what she is emotionally capable of. So I think that one, yeah.
Yeah. And it's such a good turning point of that movie too. Thank you so much for talking with me today. I really
Sure.
appreciate it. I love Poor Things so much. So thank you so much.
I'm so glad. Lovely to chat to you.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a great
Well,
day.
take care. You too.
Bye.